We can't play for an audience, otherwise you sell out.
Yeah.
You corrupt yourself. I'm looking for the truth. I'm passionate about the truth. I would always be Oliver Stone, the guy who did this conspiracy theorist.
From Dallas, Texas, the flash, apparently official, President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, some 38 minutes ago.
Oliver Stone, 11 Oscar nominations. Is that right? 11?
I never kept track. I don't know how
Well,
accurate
counted.
that is.
I get 11.
Okay.
And 3 in the cabinet.
Okay.
Yeah.
I take that.
Where do you keep them?
I keep them at home now, but sometimes I lend them out, or
Oh, okay.
sometimes at the office. We'll
Can
see.
I borrow one? Can I have
You can
one?
borrow one. No, it depends. You know.
JFK, Nixon, Born on the 4th of July, Wall Street, Platoon. You don't make throwaway movies, do you? You seem to. Every movie seems to mean
Not
something.
fast food movies for me. To me, they're deep meals. You know, I try to put everything I have at that point in my life into it, and you know, it's also a memory. Think of it from my point of view. I'm looking back, and if I remember 1993, it's because I was doing Heaven and Earth, or '94 Natural Born Killers, or '91 that year for JFK was such a. I did The Doors the same year. That was an amazing year.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, every year means something. Even there was this Untold History of the United States when it was 2008. We started it when Bush had been in office 2 terms, and we wanted to deal with this disease we have, and that went on for 5 years, and it really wrapped up in the beginning of this year. We finished. It was on the air, finished just the beginning of this year by 3 days in time. And that was a huge amount of work for me and Peter, but that's still, we're out talking about it still a year later because we have a DVD Blu-ray release out this week. So you can understand that it doesn't end. I mean, that thing, history has marked me, a 5-year project, in a way that it's deepened my awareness of history, and certainly makes making another movie more difficult in a way because I have to kind of live up to something in myself.
Yeah. You said Peter, and we haven't introduced Peter. Peter Kuznick. Kuznick. Professor of history at American University. And well, the reason that you two are here are varied and timely. One is your book that you mentioned, The Untold History of the United States, which is the same title as the Showtime docu-series. How many? 10 chapters? 10 episodes?
That was 10 chapters. So the Blu-ray is 12 chapters because we had 2 on-air chapters.
Okay. What were the unaired ones?
1900 to 1940, the beginning of the empire.
Yeah. Oliver co-wrote and directed the movie JFK, which is having a 50th anniversary of the act, not 50th anniversary of the film. It's a 1991 film. 50th anniversary of the assassination of Kennedy. Warner Home Video just released the JFK Ultimate Collector's Edition, which includes the director's cut of JFK, 17 extra minutes.
Right.
The 1963 movie PT-109, 2 feature documentaries about JFK, an episode from the Untold History of the United States series, the one that deals with Kennedy, plus pictures and photos and letters. It's a treasure trove.
And commentary.
Yeah.
And,
You talk about the post-war generation, the boomer generation, and for them, for us, the JFK assassination was pivotal, maybe the pivotal event of our lives. For you, it must have, I mean, for you to have made a film like this and to devote so much of your time and energy to the whole subject, it must have been, from the start, something of a pivotal moment for you.
Well, I wasn't initially. I bought the official story. I never questioned it. When I was raised conservatively, and my father was a Republican, and I was a high school boy. But my father was anti-Kennedy. He was pro-Nixon. So there you go. But he was an immensely attractive man, but I didn't understand the significance of all this. I happened to go to Vietnam to the war there after he died, but I didn't make any kind of connection to it. In the 1980s, when I was making films, I was offered this book by Jim Garrison called On the Trail of the Assassins, which was a hell of a good thriller. And I was a dramatist, and I looked at it as a thriller. And I always wanted to make a film like Z by Costa Gavras, which is about a prosecutor who goes after the murderers of a left-wing politician, and they turn out to be working with the state.
Yeah.
And the state is a corrupt state. And, of course, at the end, his prosecution is destroyed. And and the bad guys are let go. It's somewhat similar, actually, to the Garrison story.
Yeah.
And that's what I felt it was. And as I got into it more and more, as a thriller, I realized that there was much more at stake here. There was just an amazing body of fact that had been published by conscientious citizens, not working for profit, not in the government, who actually went out and did the legwork and came up with this fact, this some people call it a theory, but I see it very much as a fact that Kennedy was killed by more than one gunman. And that there was many implications by witnesses and by documents involving other people in this assassination, particularly a rogue, call him a rogue or a hardcore element in the government's covert operations, which was responsible and organized this assassination in Dallas, because it was a very precisely organized one.
Were you ever in the pre-Cuba movement or whatever that's called?
That's the Fair Play for Cuba Committee.
What did you do in Russia? And what happened to your eye?
He seems pretty cool to me for a man under pressure like that.
A policeman hit me.
I find it interesting that the box set includes PT-109.
I saw Cliff Robertson. Yeah,
as
good
JFK,
movie. Yeah, not a great movie, but a good movie.
And your film. And it seems like they're cinematic bookends. You know, one is old Hollywood hagiography of a figure, and yours is new Hollywood deconstruction of expectations. You drew on other films you love. You loved Z and The Longest Day, and you pulled from both of them.
I love movies. I'm a movie maker, but I think JFK holds up. I saw it yesterday before I came over here to Washington, and I just wanted to remind myself. And I think the film holds up very strongly on the evidence, on the autopsy, and on the shooting especially, on the bullets and how many bullets were shot. I'm very proud of it. I think as a dramatist, I can criticize. There's a few scenes that I would do differently. I think they were a little clunky, but it was a big film with a lot of actors. It was 3 hours, and at that time, 9 minutes. It was a big challenge. It changed my life because after that film came out, there was so much controversy that I was a bit naive about it, and I never saw it coming. I really didn't. After that, I could never go back. In a sense, I'd crossed the Rubicon. I would always be Oliver Stone, the guy who did this conspiracy theorist, which I find a bit demeaning because I've never done that kind of work. I don't do that in my films, but I'm looking for the truth. I'm passionate about the truth. And I think I paid a price for making the movie.
It doesn't seem that what you're saying in the film is, this is it. This is the definitive story. I think what you're saying is the Warren Commission is the officially sanctioned myth.
Yeah.
Here's an alternative myth that maybe is even a bit more plausible than the official one.
I think it's far more plausible. I don't think it is a myth, but frankly, I think we by the insofar as we framed it inside the Garrison story, but that's one of the stories. It's the main story. Garrison, and we show the case. People criticize us because Garrison's case was dismissed. It wasn't. We show in the movie, if you look at the movie, that Garrison knows that his case is weak, and he's an honorable man in spite of it. And he is completely discredited by the CIA at the time. We didn't know it. In the light of day, what we know now with WikiLeaks and with Edward Snowden, we know that the government would go to no ends to destroy a whistleblower, and that's what they did with Garrison.
Is it possible for a government to be good, given the people who automatically, by nature, run to the top of it?
I believe a government can be good. I think there's many examples of good government. I think the less you know about some of the less ego involved. I mean, Switzerland has had a democracy since the 13th century because we don't know any of the presidents. It's kind of an interesting way, anti-government way of doing things, and having a real democracy of committees of 8, 9, 10 people who are not so known running things. The Council of Elders, the Greek ideal.
Yeah,
there's something to be said for that.
Switzerland's an interesting example. George Bush was supposed to go to Switzerland earlier this year, and he canceled his trip. He was afraid not only of protests, he was afraid he might get indicted for war crimes there.
True, it's true.
But the problem that I see is that the values that are rewarded and the traits that are rewarded for getting ahead in our society are cutthroatedness, greed, avariciousness, avarice.
Hard power.
Yeah, hard power. The nice values, the values that we would like to hold up, that we try to teach our
soft
kids,
power.
Never get rewarded. And if that's what motivates you and drives you, you almost never get to the top. And you get people like Martin Luther King who do get there. John Kennedy started with a little bit of both. But by the end of his administration, clearly the soft side had won out over the hard side. But those people rarely get to power, at least in our system.
And Robert
especially.
Kennedy.
And
Henry Wallace.
People. There are a lot of people. If you look at Henry Wallace, for example.
George McGovern.
It's also the ability to see the world through other people's eyes. Right? The ability to see the world through the eyes of our adversaries, even our enemies.
In the foreword to your book, you mentioned that you get ready because we're going to tell you all the bad stuff that the United States did in the past 100 years. We know you know the good stuff that we've done.
Yeah.
Well, it's not the triumphalist narrative that I learned in school,
Yeah.
And that's a good guy, kind of bad guy scenario. It's dramatic. It's Manichaean. The world is much more complex and gray, and we're trying to show that the United States could live inside the world as it exists, inside a harmonic globe where we could balance the interests of all people. Because we were in a great position after World War II. We had the world's wealth. We were dominant in every way. The Soviets were busted. They were broke. They were looking for reparations from us. They were promised $10 billion by Roosevelt. We took no pity on that. We made it into an ideological situation right away. We wanted to control the world, the sea lanes, the power. We took over what the British Empire had been running for a century or more.
One more question about the movie. You shut down Dealey Plaza for several days. That couldn't have been easy to pull off.
It was very difficult. We could probably not do that today because I believe there's been a backlash. The country has gone farther to the right. Remember John Mitchell, Kennedy's Attorney General? You're old enough to remember him. He had a great quote in 1970 before he went to jail. He said, this country is going so far to the right that you're not going to recognize it anymore. He was 10 years ahead of Reagan.
Right.
What a prophetic quote. And I think the Dealey Plaza we wouldn't have gotten. We barely got it then, and it was by a margin of one vote. I think.
Yeah, because Dallas does not like to be remembered.
Or something. What?
Dallas does not like to be remembered as the spot.
Dallas, it's important to see Dealey Plaza because it's a gem of an ambush site. It's like a little theater. It's impeccable. And if you want to get somebody and make it sure it's a killing, you have to kill them. You can't let them out of there because then you're going to be screwed. You got to hit them from three sides. In Vietnam, we called it a triangulated ambush.
For the new issue of AARP, the magazine, you were good enough to list for us the 10 essential boomer movies.
Right.
And you were modest enough not to include one of your movies. If we had to include an Oliver Stone movie in the list of
I would hope the boomers followed me. Certainly there. You're putting me on the spot there. I hadn't planned on that one. I was ready to talk about the other 10. I like JFK a lot. I think it holds up. But I feel like I'm in a better place. I feel like I'm stronger. I know more. I always feel that each film teaches me. I evolve to another place.
Two guys who study history and try to see the other side of history. How do you think historians are going to judge this post-war generation?
Our generation, people who lived through the Vietnam War, 70% of that generation thinks the Vietnam War was a mistake, that it was bad. Of the 18 to 29-year-olds today, 51% think the Vietnam War was not a mistake, that it was worth fighting. So they've, whatever mistakes we made, we learned something as a generation. It was our generation that brought women's rights really in a serious way, gay liberation, civil rights. We stood for something, we fought for something, and we did help end the war in Vietnam.
How do you make a movie that's going to speak and get your message across, or do you bother, to the 18 to 28-year-olds? How do you reach them through the art of film, which is the language you speak?
I've never sought that. That's a demographic thing. And in marketing, I think marketing has taken over the film business, and I think as a negative. I mean, we've given them what they wanted. They're comics. They grew up with comics. They're sort of what Stanley Kaufman, the great movie critic, called a calculated slumming in modern motion pictures. Everything's grungy and there's a certain grittiness, but it's a formula.
Yeah.
But the hard truth is always hard to earn. You have to make it. The JFK, whether you believe it or not, is a hard truth to earn. I did Alexander, this version. I did 4 versions of it because I couldn't succeed the first time. My new version, 2007, was the best one, and I'm doing another one now that's coming out next year on DVD. It's Alexander, the ultimate cut, because I was looking deeper every time, seeing something that I missed. We're not all We don't all get it the first time around. So I think the good movies last. I think they're classical. They go on.
Gosh, thank you for coming. I appreciate you being here.